Hey guys, how you doing today? Just on my way home from work. Uh, so what's been banging around in my head today, right? I've been thinking about the basic income a lot recently. Been thinking about it's fun to watch the media, Financial Post, and all these sort of conservative hacks losing their brain about the idea that people might have food and shelter and have their needs taken care of. But what's frustrating is watching these, economic illiterates and certainly governmental illiterates just spin their tires on old propaganda that doesn't work anymore, right? Like, nobody cares that the deficit's going up. Nobody's concerned about that because people are starting to key in and they're starting to understand, at least intrinsically, that government is not a business, right? If a government runs a deficit, it doesn't quote unquote cripple the economy. Quite the opposite, in fact. Capitalists just don't like it when governments run deficits because they don't like a populace that isn't desperate. That's what capitalists want. They want a desperate population that they can exploit. And if a government is running a deficit, it means that the government is doing something to help the people. And that's not what capitalists want. Capitalists want government to not do anything because then they can be the blood-sucking parasites that they are, right? So there is no real rational critique coming out about the basic income. And so I'm going to take a moment now and I am going to critique the basic income in a way that I think is actually rational, right? Because, nothing rational is happening in capitalism right now. Capitalism is trying to force people back to work in pandemics. Capitalism is trying to evict people from their houses. Capitalism's gone crazy. I think even the most staunch fundamentalist capitalist who isn't a sociopath is currently talking about how do we reform capitalism. But I haven't actually heard a critique of the basic income outside of a few sources, and it makes sense that those sources would have an accurate critique of capitalism, or of the basic income, I should say, because they're typically Marxists. People like Richard Wolff, I think, has a fairly reasonable critique of the basic income. So one of the things, and while I go on this, please understand, I support a basic income. I've been fighting for a basic income. I believe in a basic income. I think a basic income is important for our society and for our people to evolve and move forward and to get one step further away from rapacious sociopathic capitalism, which we live under now. So, the critique of the basic income begins by saying that fundamentally what a basic income becomes is a subsidy for the current structures of capital. That if a person who has no money is suddenly given money just for existing in the world, well, they're going to spend that money to improve their material conditions, right? So, take it to the next step. Who do they spend that money on, right? They spend that money in corporate businesses, which currently exist, they spend it on rent. They give it to landlords, right? So, the basic income does not do anything to upset the capitalist apple cart on this level. It maintains the power of landlords. It maintains the power of corporate businesses because it fundamentally acts as a subsidy for those organizations. Now, as a communist, I think that we should abolish these things. Corporate-run businesses and privately run businesses, shareholder-owned businesses, I think should be abolished and replaced with worker-owned businesses, worker co-ops, which is what Richard Wolff really fights for. And I see the basic income as a transition to these things. That as you give workers and citizens a platform, a foundation to stand on, and allow them to actually be able to interact with the market that exists, even though the market is completely dominated by billionaires, completely dominated by a capitalist class which does not care about us. And so that while that's an improvement, it is not the end of our evolution towards communism, right? It's not a finish. Lots of people, I read an article recently kind of reminding us, we don't have, the basic income should not be treated as a silver bullet. Which, first of all, nobody has treated it as a silver bullet ever. But I think it's more concerning to think that we shouldn't be treating the basic income as an endpoint. Basic income is a capitalist reform, all right? As a communist, I don't believe that that's enough, because I don't believe that capitalism can be reformed. I think that capitalism is destined to collapse. I believe that capitalism is destined, and in short order, in my lifetime, is destined to become something along the lines of how we view feudalism, right? No one is standing up and defending feudalism and saying we should go back to feudalism, much in the same way people in my lifetime will never bring up capitalism as a legitimate way to run a society because of the obvious and overt disasters that capitalism consistently lays upon the populace. And when I say consistently, I mean I've had 3 economic collapses in my lifetime, right? That's not a good system. That's not a good system. That's a failed system. Obviously a failed system. So the basic income, while I think an important change to the capitalist system, does not actually get us rid of the largest problems with capitalism, right? The largest problem with capitalism, and again, I advise everybody should check out Richard Wolff. Richard Wolff's stuff is really great. He's much more well-spoken and much more educated than I am. Much more. He's super, like, he's well advanced past the rest of us, and very much worth listening to as a Marxist economist. And he has a solution, which is that workers should own the businesses they run through worker co-ops, right? Now, I feel like I can articulate this and augment this in a new way, which is that the workers should be the shareholders, okay? Most corporate businesses, most large-scale businesses have shareholders. These are worthless capitalists who do no work and provide no productivity. They do nothing. They're what Marx would call the bourgeoisie, right? They actually don't do anything except siphon productivity away into offshore accounts where it sits worthlessly and should be taxed away completely, right? Their existence in the system is pointless. And yet they are permitted through shareholder meetings, through CEOs, they are permitted to be the first and last word in decision making, which is an odd situation. If 10 people were in a room and had to decide how to make a society, right, and how to make it work, and one of them stood up and said, okay, you guys do all the work, and I will take all the money outside of what you need to survive, and I'll make all the decisions, and that's how we'll do this. No one would agree to that. Not a single person would be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, right? Not a single person would tolerate that. And yet that's exactly the situation we're in. Oh, little b. So I think that the basic income is not enough, right? It gives us the platform to be able to engage in a market in a way that we haven't been able to before. It gives employees a little bit of leverage in the employee-employer dynamic and forces employers to actually respond to a market that isn't filled with desperate people, where the desperation has been alleviated, and people have a certain level of survivability guaranteed by their ruling class, by the government. So the next step then in this project of abolishing capitalism, which is the project, is to transfer the shares from the shareholders, right? To transfer the shares from the shareholders to the workers. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. Number one, we just do it. We just say to them, okay, shareholders, you no longer are the shareholders. You workers, you are now the shareholders. You own the shares. We don't give a shit about you shareholders. Go die. That's essentially a revolution, right? I am not opposed to revolution because I think that revolution truly lies in the hands of the powerful. That if the powerful are responding to the demands of the populace rationally, especially in a democratic society, there should never be a revolution, right? That all the powerful have to do to prevent revolution is to give in to the demands of the populace, and then the powerful will maintain their positions of power. And the populace will get what it wants. So the conversation that's happened with the basic income, the same thing happened in the universal healthcare system in that passage. And the then liberal government could have lost its power and prestige, could have lost its position, but instead it acquiesced to the demands of the populace, which I consider the demand of universal healthcare to be extremely reasonable. And actually pretty low tier. Pretty low tier. And now this demand, the basic income, it is possible that the liberals will acquiesce in the same way. That the threat of losing power is so great for them that they will do something like pass a basic income in order to move the society to a more civilized, socialized place. And away from the rapacious sociopathic capitalists. So again, revolution is in the hand of the powerful, and if the people revolt, if they have a revolution, I'm not opposed to that. My preference is not to have a revolution, because having a revolution has a lot of unintended consequences, a lot of bloodshed. You can have a civil war. Look at the States. It's happening now in real time. So my preference is to not have a civil war. And so I think the way that you actually transfer shares to the populace, to the workers, without having a revolutionary state, is that you give workers the right of first refusal. When shares go for sale, right, as they do, the first people who have the right to purchase them are the workers. And the workers can say no, right? But they have first dibs, essentially. Securing a loan for these shares would be simple. Any politician who would like to permanently secure votes from these workers would secure that loan, right? Ensure that the workers are able to have the capital that they need in order to secure these shares for themselves. And through this process, the working class would eventually take over these capitalist enterprises, and these top-down, hierarchical run, totalitarian dictatorships, essentially, that exist in our society we call businesses, fade away in time. And so rather than having like a complete overhaul where we completely shake things up and there's all these unintended consequences and there's the possibility of a civil war and all of this kind of stuff, it is a gradual re-handing over. It is a gradual handing over of businesses and enterprises to the working class. And the capitalist class gets to have their fake numbers sit in a bank account and they get to feel good about themselves. And then when they die, that's taxed away, and that's great. So no muss, no fuss. And so rather than it being the workers seizing the means of production, we steadily transfer the means of production to the workers through a transfer of shares away from the shareholders who do no work and are of no value, to the workers who do the work and are valuable. And so the workers then become the shareholders. And so when decisions need to be made for the company, it is the workers themselves that are making the decisions for the company. And of course there are worker co-ops who very much they elect people to be responsible. They elect management. They elect people to be responsible for the decision making, just to expedite things or all of this. But those people can be replaced by the workers. And of course, there are things that the workers can just vote on, right? So there's many ways to structure it, but as long as the final say is the workers themselves, and that the workers are the ones who own the shares, then there's absolutely no reason this shouldn't work. And I believe that in a post-basic income world, this should be the new idea for the next generation. Absolutely. That, I would love it for myself, honestly. Like, I believe in the business that I'm in, and I would like to be a shareholder of that business, absolutely. But I don't have any capital, and the capitalists are likely not going to sell to me. Because they're looking for the big sell, right? They're looking for the $1 billion. That's what they want. And there's no political force behind this idea. There's no popular force behind this idea, even though I do think that this idea is the next tier of how we get away from capitalism, how we ensure that the power goes into the hands of the people, first and foremost, and how we can ensure that our society improves and steadily goes closer to a more communist vision, which is always my goal. Okay, that's the end of my time. I hope you guys are having fun out there. Like, share, subscribe. I need one more subscriber. To hit 50. I'm so close to getting 50 subscribers, you guys. 50 subscribers would just make my heart feel so good. Just a nice 50. I would be so happy if I got a 50th subscriber. It could be you. You could be the 50th subscriber. Just subscribe to make a person in the world feel better. Go get drunk, make out with somebody, kiss a girl, kiss a boy, I don't care. Do what you want. Live your life the way you want. Stay safe, smile, go talk to your neighbors.